Join me as I dive deep into the chilling messages from beyond the grave about false idols, and see if I can uncover the truth behind these warnings. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is really important, especially in today's world. We're bombarded with things that distract us, things that take our attention away from what's truly important, and what we're going to talk about is false idols. Identifying false idols in our lives can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. They can take many forms and can be sneaky, hiding in plain sight. They can be things that we think are harmless, but in reality, they're leading us away from our true purpose and our faith. For some people, it might be a career, a certain status, or a certain lifestyle. For others, it could be a person, a relationship, or even a hobby. Sometimes, we get so caught up in these things that we forget what's truly important. We start to prioritize them over our relationships, our well-being, and even our own values. And before we know it, they've become idols in our lives, taking the place of what should be our true focus. It's not always easy to recognize when something has become an idol, but one way to identify it is to ask ourselves if we're willing to sacrifice our relationships, our values, or our well-being for it. Another way to identify a false idol is to ask ourselves if it's bringing us long-term fulfillment and happiness, or is it just a temporary high? Because when we prioritize false idols, we're ultimately left feeling empty and unfulfilled. So, how do we avoid falling into this trap? In today's society, there are many modern-day idols that can take our attention away from what's truly important. One of the biggest ones is materialism. We're constantly being told that we need the latest and greatest things to be happy, but is that really true? I mean, think about it. How many times have you bought something and felt happy for a little while, but then that feeling wore off and you needed something else to fill the void? It's a never-ending cycle, and it's a great example of how materialism can become an idol in our lives. Another modern-day idol is fame. We're living in a world where social media reigns supreme, and it's easy to get caught up in the idea that our worth is tied to how many likes and followers we have. We start to compare ourselves to others, and before we know it, we're sacrificing our relationships and even our own self-worth just to get that next big thing. And then there's technology. Don't get me wrong, technology is an amazing tool, but when it starts to control our lives, it can become an idol. When we prioritize these things over our relationships, our values, and our own well-being, we're essentially saying that they're more important than our own faith. And that's when they become idols. So, what's the warning from beyond the grave about false idols? Well, one of the most powerful messages I've come across is that when we prioritize false idols, we're not just hurting ourselves, we're also hurting those around us. We're taking our eyes off the prize, so to speak, and focusing on things that will ultimately leave us empty and unfulfilled. And when we do that, we're not only hurting ourselves, we're also hurting our communities and our families. The warning is clear: we need to be careful about what we're prioritizing in our lives, because it can have far-reaching consequences. So, let's recap what we've talked about today. We've talked about how false idols can distract us from our true purpose and faith, and how they can take many forms in our lives. We've also talked about modern-day idols like materialism, fame, and technology, and how they can impact our lives and our spirituality. And finally, we've discussed the warning from beyond the grave about the consequences of worshiping false idols. Remember, it's up to each of us to recognize and avoid these idols in our lives. So, I want to hear from you. What do you think are some modern false idols that we need to be aware of? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about false idols and how to overcome them, be sure to check out my next video where we'll dive deeper into this topic. Thanks for watching.